Hey guys, if you're new here, my name is Christina. Thank you so much for joining me. As someone who suffered from social anxiety in the past, I thought it'd be really good to make a video all about some of the things that really helped me overcome anxiety. Not necessarily tips and practical things, but just concepts and ideas that kind of changed my mindset and really helped me to understand the way of thinking that I need to adopt if I really want to overcome anxiety. I'm also planning a video, I think in the next week or two, on 5 of the main things that I learned from mental health counselling. So if anxiety or depression, OCD, anything mental health related is something that you suffered from, I think it's definitely worth subscribing because that video is going to be coming up in the next few weeks. So in this video, I'm going to be sharing with you pretty much 8 of the concepts that help me overcome anxiety, and they're going to kind of include different things that cover why overcoming anxiety is so difficult and why it's normally the fear of judgment that's behind anxiety, and just in general some things to help you understand anxiety a bit better. So number 1, let go of your need to be liked by other people. So there's an incredible book which I mentioned in my July favorites video. If you haven't watched that, I'll link it up here. But it's a book called The Courage to Be Disliked, and I'm going to really do like a quick summary because I don't want to go into too much detail. This book is pretty much about the reason why we find ourselves unhappy is because we're doing pretty much everything in our power to be liked by other people and to make them happy, and in the process we're making ourselves very unhappy. And I think sometimes this is linked with anxiety, and this is why I mentioned it in this video. But if you really want to overcome anxiety and the worry of going out and being in social situations, you're probably in that mode of anxiety and fear because you're worried about what other people will think. And you're worried about what other people will think because you want them to like you, but you're worried that they might not. So if you really want to get rid of anxiety, you just need to let go of the worry of, will people like me, will they not? That needs to go. You can't let go of anxiety and still hold on to worrying what other people will think of you. I think once you understand that it's actually a fear of judgment that upholds social anxiety, you realize that all of our anxiety, and especially social anxiety, it just stems from our need to be liked by other people. The reason why we worry so much about what people might say or think about us is because deep down we want them to like us. Learning this really helped me understand that, well, if my anxiety is caused by my desire for people to like me, then I need to let go of that in order to be free of anxiety. Number 2 is the vicious cycle of anxiety. So this is pretty much just a concept that explains how anxiety works, and I think it's really interesting. So when you're in a situation that makes you anxious, you show up at the social situation and maybe it makes you feel anxious. So you start to feel nervous, maybe you get clammy hands, maybe you start to sweat, like increased heart rate. Because your body now feels anxious as well, you're anxious in your head and in your body, you then start to, I guess, panic, and you start to think, oh well, this is making me really anxious, I don't want to do this anymore. So then you kind of think, well, I think fight or flight kicks in pretty much. So you start to think, well, do I want to tackle this? Obviously not, because you're so nervous, you're anxious, you're sweaty, you don't want to do it. So pretty much you just escape or avoid the situation. If you have anxiety, I'm pretty sure you'll maybe recognize this, and you might even have a scenario that you've done before that maybe follows this pattern. But basically, this cycle isn't healthy, because if you think about it, yes, you've escaped the thing that made you anxious or made you scared, but that situation, that scenario is not going anywhere. It's always going to be there. If you were to go to a similar event or a similar scenario, if you were to be put in a similar position, you would still go through that same cycle. Nothing is going to change. And when you've had anxiety, I think you understand that, like, it can be really frustrating to know that you have anxiety, know that you want to overcome it, but you just find yourself in a cycle over and over again, and it becomes really frustrating when you're like, I want to get over this, I want to be brave, I want to have the courage, but you just can't. But I think understanding this cycle will really help you. I think the key things to take away from this cycle, from this bit, is that the thing that makes you anxious isn't going to go anywhere. It's not going away. Once you realize this and understand the vicious cycle, you kind of have to realize and just understand that you either have to face your fear and just push past the initial anxiety that you have, or you're going to be just constantly a victim to it, and you're constantly going to be just held captive by it. You're not going to be able to achieve all your goals, achieve your dreams of all the things that you want to get to, because you can't just get past the initial anxiety, if that makes sense. But some of the things I'm going to share later on in this video will probably help you with that. So anxiety is just a worry about a potential threat. So if you think about it, there's probably lots of things that you're anxious about, but if you really have a think about it, and I encourage you to maybe like journal about this. I have a video all on journaling, you can check it out here. When you think about it, you're probably just anxious about what might or what could happen. You're not actually worried about the actual thing. So I'll give you like 2 examples. So you're not actually scared of social situations, you're just scared of what people might think about you in those social situations. Number 2 is you're not actually scared of speaking up at work or at school, you're just scared people might think that you're bossy, or people might think that you're weird for speaking up. So When you think about all those things that you're personally anxious about or worried about, what I really encourage you guys to do is have a think about whatever it is that makes you anxious or scared, and really have a think about whether that's actually something you're scared of, because deep down it probably isn't. It's probably just the potential threat. This really helped me because it helped me to realize that all these things that I'm worried about, well, I'm actually not worried about the end destination. I'm just scared of kind of like the little bit in the middle. So I'm just scared what people might think of me. I'm just scared of what might go wrong. I'm not actually scared of the thing at the end, if that makes sense. So I think this is really helpful because it kind of gives you a bit more courage to kind of push past the anxiety, because you're not actually scared of the big thing at the end. It's just something in the middle that's stopping you from getting there. Our thoughts have very little power. This is something that I actually learned from counseling, but our thoughts on their own aren't very powerful. The thing that causes really bad anxiety and the thing that causes really bad panic attacks and even depression is when we dwell and just ruminate on really negative thoughts. If you have a negative thought on its own, that in itself doesn't have a lot of power. It's when we kind of sit and think, oh, you know, what if no one does like me? Or what if I do have no friends? What if I am a terrible person? What if I am going to be single forever? It's when we sit and just think about all these horrible things, that's what leads to anxiety. So this really helped me because I thought, well, understanding that means each time a negative thought pops into my head, I have to just sit and realize that, okay, that's just one thought on its own. Let me not give it loads of energy. Let me not give it loads of power. Let me focus on something else. And then it kind of loses its power and it won't spiral into something much worse. And also this thankfully works both ways. So if you think about it, if you were to dwell, ruminate and think on positive things and uplifting thoughts, then you'd be in a much better place and you'd probably be much happier as well. People are too busy worrying about themselves. This one was an absolute game changer for me. It really, really helped me because I think, especially if you've got social anxiety, this is probably one that's on your mind a lot. Like, what are people thinking about me? Am I weird? Do I stand out? This one helped me so much. You probably think about yourself like 99.999% of the time. Now, if you're someone with social anxiety, most of your thoughts that you're thinking about are probably worries about what people might be thinking of you. But if you understood what I said first, you know, everyone thinks about themselves 99.999% of the time. So when you're worried about what, you know, Adam thinks about you, what Bob thinks about you, what Christina thinks about you, they're all too busy thinking about themselves. They are not worrying about you at all. Worst case scenario, you might pop into their head like once or twice, but genuinely everyone in your class, everyone at work, everyone at school, everyone is too busy thinking about themselves. If you have a think about all the things that you worry about yourself, like does my outfit look weird? Do I look funny? When you think about all the things that you worry about, pretty much everyone else is worrying about the same things. There's an amazing quote by Eleanor Roosevelt. I'll just read it out for you guys. You wouldn't worry what other people think about you if you knew how seldom they do, which is so true. Like I think with this one, just have a think about how much you think about yourself, and then if you're someone who worries about what will people think of me, just realize that you think about yourself so much and people are also thinking about themselves so much. They don't have time to worry about you. So it's honestly nothing to worry about. Give yourself a new identity. So I watched this amazing TED Talk called Good Enough by Derek Sivers. To be honest, I think the last 2-3 minutes of it were the good bits, but you can watch the whole thing if you want to. In this talk, he kind of talks at the end about how our identity can hold us back. If you think about it, if you tell yourself over and over again that I'm a shy person, I don't get along with people, I'm not very outgoing, because that's the identity you hold on to, you'll constantly live in accordance with that identity. So because you tell yourself I'm shy, you'll just act that out. But on the other hand, identity can be really good because you can give yourself a new identity, which I think is something that people with anxiety, especially social anxiety, should start to do. Even if you are shy, even if you are scared to meet new people, even if you are scared to put yourself out there, start to tell yourself things like, I'm charismatic, I am outgoing, people love to speak to me. I know it's difficult. It's difficult initially because it's like, that's a lie, that's not true, but you need a new identity that you can act in accordance with to make sure that you get to where you want to be. I'm sure if you have anxiety, that's not quite where you want to be, and I'm sure you want to get to a much better place, but to get there, you need to give yourself a new identity. You need to let go of, I'm someone with anxiety, I'm someone with depression. You need to kind of pick a new identity, which is more positive. And even though it's difficult at the start to believe it, as long as you constantly tell yourself every morning that, you know, I am outgoing, I am charismatic, whatever it is that you want to adopt, you eventually will start to act in accordance with that. And it kind of bottles down to this. So if you want to become the person that you want to be, this vision of yourself that's amazing, really cool, successful, that vision of yourself that you have, in order to become that person, you can't kind of sit and wait for the confidence to come and then become that person. You have to become that person now. And you become that person now, I guess by faking it, I guess by pretending. I prefer saying give yourself a new identity, because I feel like that sounds more like authentic. But yeah, you can't sit around and wait for, oh, when I'm in a relationship, that's when I'll have the confidence to become my best self, or when I get this new job, that's when I'll have the confidence to live my best life. You can't wait for something else to come to get to where you want to be. You just have to start now. And I think starting now can start with giving yourself a new identity. People's idea of you isn't your responsibility to live up to. Sometimes your family, your friends, the people you care about, it's really difficult when they have an idea of you that they want you to live up to. And changing or silencing yourself in order to live up to the expectations of other people is a horrible thing to do to yourself. It's so damaging to your mental health when you constantly want to change yourself. And you kind of have an idea of what people expect of you. So you feel like, oh, I have to act in accordance with that. Otherwise people will maybe not like me, or they'll think I'm weird. But that is not your responsibility. You do not need to live up to what other people think of you. That is not your responsibility at all. But being authentic to yourself is so valuable. You should not trade that for your classmates, your friends, not even your family. Like, you need to stay true to who you are. Otherwise it will just damage your mental health so much. It's really not worth it. Last but not least is your silence will not protect you. This one I think really does apply to people with social anxiety, especially if you found yourself in a position where you're silencing yourself or making yourself small. I found myself in a place where I started to make myself small, and I tried as much as I could to blend into the background in order to, I thought that would free me from anxiety. I thought that being in the background, having no one look at me, having no one see me, making myself small, I thought that would make me feel better. But actually it makes you feel a lot worse in the long run. It's the opposite of what you think. But when you actually speak up and be yourself and just stay true to who you are, and honestly it's so weird, but when you actually like overcome your fears and do the thing that you're scared of, that is what actually frees you from anxiety. And I'm living proof of it, because if you told me a couple of months ago that like I'll have a YouTube channel and I'll be putting it on my Instagram and social media and sharing it with friends and family, I would have been like, oh my god, what? Like, I would have been so like shocked by that, because it was honestly like my worst nightmare. I was so scared of putting myself out there and just bringing attention to myself. I'm not very good with attention because I'm really introverted, and it's so spot on, because I think especially when you have social anxiety, you start to think that being small, keeping yourself to yourself and not putting yourself out there, you start to think, oh yeah, you know, I feel protected, I feel safe. In the long run, it does not work. It really will not protect you. But what protects you is actually going out of your comfort zone and doing all the things you're scared of. I know it's very daunting, especially when you have in your mind like all the things that make you anxious and all the things that make you scared, but doing those things really does free you. It's so liberating. I really want you guys to know that as someone who's been on your side, maybe has anxiety, it feels like they can't overcome it, and then being here on this side where I've done all the things that I'm scared of, I'm doing the things I'm scared of now with this channel. Doing all the things that you're scared of, doing the things that make you anxious really is liberating. So I really hope you guys have found this video useful. These are all things that I really wish I knew a couple of months ago, a couple of years ago, when I was really struggling. But I just wanted to share them with you just in case it might help someone out there. Let me know in the comments if these have been helpful for you. I'd love to know, because you know I respond to all the comments. I'd love to know if they were helpful for you. And yeah, thank you so much for watching. Bye. If you made it to the end of this video,